Welcome back, students. Today we're going to attempt something that honestly might sound a bit impossible at first. We're going to take the incredibly dense, profound logic of Nagarjuna's Mulamadhyamakakarika and distill it into a generalized, 10-step diagnostic tool. Now, as someone who spends their life immersed in Nagarjuna's teachings, I can promise you this isn't just abstract, dusty philosophy. It's actually a completely universal framework. It applies to literally any relation or action in your life. Whether we're talking about the fundamental nature of causality, motion, or just you perceiving this explainer right now, we're going to use the global Madhyamaka reasoning found across those first chapters to directly deconstruct how you experience reality. Here is our roadmap for today. 1. The 3 spheres of action. 2. The Tetralemma and absurdity. 3. Union of the 2 truths. 4. Navigating the illusory cycle. And 5. Acting in the middle way. Let's jump right in. Section 1. The 3 spheres of action. Deconstructing the conceptual triad. All right, step 1. We have to start by identifying the core illusion. You see, our dualistic conceptual mind inherently chops reality up into 3 distinct spheres. The absolute master key to understanding this is recognizing that any generic action, any relation at all, requires 3 parts: an actor, which we'll call opposite 1, the action or the relation itself, and the resulting object or opposite 2. Now notice how this universally applies in a really beautiful rhythmic pattern if we look at the first 3 chapters of the text. In chapter 1, dealing with actions like causality, we have the cause, the causality itself, and the effect. In chapter 2, regarding motion, we find the goer, the motion or going, and the destination. And then in chapter 3, looking at perception, we have the perceiver, the perception, and the perceived. We could even say movement and stillness, or existence and non-existence. It's always this exact same triad. Section 2. The Tetralemma and absurdity, applying fourfold negation. So for step 2, we bring out our analytical scalpel, the Tetralemma. This is Nagarjuna's rigorous fourfold negation. We use this to show that any absolute claims about these 3 spheres always lead to absolute absurdity. We literally cannot find the true origination, the true duration, or the true cessation of any phenomena or action if we are looking for absolute existence. The crucial point here is that examining the relationship between these generic spheres through the 4 logical alternatives always traps us in a contradiction. The spheres absolutely cannot be inherently identical or united. They cannot be inherently different or separate. They cannot be both identical and different, and they cannot be neither. The exact same thing applies to their existence. They aren't existent, they aren't non-existent, they aren't both, and they aren't neither. And this brilliantly illustrates the trap. Let's look at identity versus difference. If the spheres are completely identical, say the perceiver and the perception are the exact same thing, then sight absurdly ends up seeing itself. It's like an eyeball trying to look directly into its own pupil. But on the flip side, if they're entirely different and separate, then we impossibly have a goer without any motion or a cause that is completely powerless to ever produce an effect. Neither extreme makes any logical sense. Section 3. Union of the 2 truths, emptiness and dependent origination. And this brings us to step 3, which is really the climax of this entire logical inquiry. From the sheer absurdity of the Tetralemma we just went through, we have to conclude that these 3 spheres are completely ungraspable. They are necessarily empty of inherent existence, and they are never, ever absolute. This is the second truth: emptiness. But hang on, we obviously still experience them, right? So for step 4, from this emptiness, we have to conclude that the spheres are inseparable. They're dependently co-arisen, interdependent, co-defined, and co-evolving. They're completely co-imputed by the mind as mere designations, mere names. They're just conventional truths, conventional tools. And that is the first truth: dependent origination. In step 5, we notice the profound harmony here. One truth supports, implies, enables, and energizes the other. That is the union of the 2 truths. Because things are utterly empty of a fixed absolute essence, they actually have the dynamic freedom to dependently interact and exist conventionally. Section 4. Navigating the illusory cycle, the limitless centerless fractal. Okay, let's shift our perspective for step 6. We have to conclude that because these 3 spheres are dependently co-arisen and empty, they are essentially like illusions. They're like reflections, mirages, dreams, or echoes. Functionally, they are there, yet not there. For step 7, we can use a generalized tetralemma to completely transcend all our conceptual frameworks. We conclude the spheres cannot be existent, non-existent, both, or neither. They aren't many, one, both, or neither. They aren't dual, non-dual, both, or neither. They transcend all dualities, whether that's permanent or impermanent, continuous or discontinuous, dependent or independent, pure or impure. More generally, reality is absolutely never just this, nor non-ness, for whatever this happens to be. Section 5. Acting in the middle way. Living without absolutes. Now, what's really fascinating about diving into all this abstract logic is the intensely practical question it drops right in our laps. If the spheres of any relation or action are entirely empty, how exactly do we function skillfully in a world without absolute truth? Do we just stop doing everything? Not at all. Here are steps 8 and 9. Step 8. We must conclude that the best attitude toward the 3 spheres of any action is the middle way, which is free from all extremes. There is literally nothing to accept, seek, do, or add in absolute terms, and nothing to reject, abandon, negate, or subtract in absolute terms. Then, step 9. We have to act and use these spheres conventionally without acting in absolute terms. That means acting without absolute apprehension, attachment, reification, or effort. We act non-dualistically without trying to absolutely change anything. Thus, we act more and more in accord with the middle way and with the true nature of reality as it is, suchness. Finally, step 10. In that profound sense of suchness pointed out by the union of the two truths, we might as well perceive everything as primordially equal, pure, perfect, complete, divine, and one. And remember, as scholars, we mean one in the strictly non-dual sense of the term, meaning not many, not one, not both, and not neither, just the pure, luminous reality of what is. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a bit of a challenge. You now hold a genuinely universal diagnostic tool. The next time you feel completely stuck by a goal, an action, or a problem, ask yourself, are you ready to stop grasping at mirages and start resting in the pure suchness of reality as it is? Apply the tetralemma, recognize the emptiness of the spheres, and try acting without acting. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into Madhyamaka reasoning.